So as we get closer and closer to the conclusion of this legendary manga and the very first episode of the final season of the anime, things are escalating rather quickly. The past handful of months have been a rather tragic experience, showcasing the utter brutality of this entire situation. The beauty of it is not only the symbolism and the meaning behind it, but also the various amounts of perspectives and understandings that unfold. If you weren't necessarily sure on how you should feel about the situation or how you should go about thinking or comprehending the things that you're witnessing, Isayama has done an incredible job into giving you so many different point of views where people will react completely differently. What they think is going on, how they feel they should be reacting to these things, what they want to be able to do and what they can't actually do. It's something subconscious and rather subtle, but does an incredible job in painting such a big and vibrant picture for you to understand. Seeing the whole image in its entirety from so many different angles, from so many different pasts and emotions and understandings. This chapter tailors all of that into a different direction. It makes everything chaotic and puts everyone very close to the line of desperation and doing the things that they have to do that they didn't want to do. It was all somewhat hypothetical and theoretical with what they wanted to do, but the reality of it is a lot harsher. They can't function or effectively approach the situation the way they wanted to. It makes things extremely difficult, thus making this chapter extremely chaotic and very close to being rather deathly. Of course, the situation is extremely high and everyone's fighting their absolute hardest and getting very close to that line of no return. But their resolve and how much they've steeled themselves for this situation is only so much, but so powerful, so strong. There's rarely moments within here where people completely get derailed or break down from what originally they were trying to do. If anything, they quickly and impressively respond to the situation, react to it, and try their best to figure out some sort of counterattack. They're doing the absolute best that they can with the information and knowledge that they have, with the power that they have. This chapter is headlined with a very ominous outlook on things. It's introduced with Ymir and looking back on those pigs so long ago that borderline kickstarted everything. Ymir is such a prominent figure as she's vital to playing a polar opposite to Eren, someone that has been locked away for so long and controlled for generations, witnessing all of these horrendous things take place with the power that she brought into the world to now being set free. But she hasn't been set free in a way where she's disappeared or the essence of her has vanished completely. It's actually the complete opposite. And we've seen very small snippets of her throughout these past handful of chapters and how much she's influenced and internal to all of these events unfolding. People are witnessing her on the battlefield, on the death and destruction, because this is what she wants. The way she plays a polar opposite to Eren is that you can't help but feel sorry for her. The life she lived and everything she went through, the amount of disrespect and humiliation that she went through even after death has now somewhat risen again. Every sort of suffering and tragic event that she has experienced is now coming back. You can't help but feel sorry for her. And hopefully that makes you understand that where she sits, the power she has, the influence over things and the connection with Eren is that they both want the same goal. She wants humanity to perish. This is her personal desires, and it's just as important as Eren's. However, their paths are obviously completely different. The more I think about Ymir, the more sad I feel towards her, and that the life that she could have had, or how things would have been completely different if she wasn't manipulated or used as a tool of war to destroy armies, to kill people, to rebuild nations with the ability that she had. She didn't ask for all of this. That's why she's so vitally important to this situation, and why she deserves this more than anyone else in reality. So using her as an opening point for this chapter and seeing her face, seeing the reality of the situation, and then completely and quickly jumping back into the chaotic nature of everything that's going on, to me I find rather impactful. Because at this point, everyone's fighting. They realize that the Zeke that they encountered was just a hollow shell, and that he somewhere resides within the body of Eren's Titan structure. So obviously they need to find him and they need to find Eren, and the only way that they can realistically do that so quickly and efficiently is with Armin's ability to become a colossal Titan and to completely blow up this spinal structure. This is something that Armin didn't want to do. At least originally his understanding towards what he wanted to do was completely different. His approach has changed, and this is what I was saying when the approach that they wanted to take and the things that they wanted to do have to be realigned and adjusted for the things that are currently unfolding, and it continuously changes. There's a lot of internalization and focus around Armin's perception of these events. As much as he is relying on Eren not to necessarily kill him, as that's somewhat what he proposed within their encounter, Armin still feels lost. He has to throw away whatever hopes he had or whatever approach that he wanted to take and do something that will actually stop these events. They conflict head on. So of course they internally conflict because he has not many options left to take. I rather enjoy the focus on Armin, even though it's rather minimalistic within the moment compared to a lot of other stuff that lingers on throughout the chapter. It's becoming more of a focus point towards the ending of the story, and I think a lot of people needed this to reconfirm their faith within Armin on how he would actually play one of, if not the most vital roles in the ending of this story. How will he be the person that saves humanity? This is the start for that. It's all been built up to this point, and it's all been built in a way where Armin has seemed like this very conflicted character, but right now, at this very moment, he's at his final pushing point, which is great to see because he does get subdued. He gets absolutely suffocated by one of Eren's Titans and doesn't allow him to actually transform. So now he's chilling inside of a Titan. He also witnesses Ymir. So there's a bit of codependency somewhat to what's going on. I'd want to say both Eren and Ymir are retroactively taking control of things and utilizing whatever things they see fit. Theoretically, you could say that they have somewhat merged together. They're two separate entities, but because their paths have aligned so perfectly and accurately, they can work in conjunction with one another. She couldn't do this before. She had no freedom, no control over anything. But now that that power has shifted to Eren, it would make a lot of sense that he's also working with her to bring this power out and about to its fullest extent. So while you could say Eren is the one that is puppeteering this whole situation, could also equally say that Ymir is the one that's stopping this situation. And whether or not Ymir has hidden agendas or a different perspective or understanding towards things is completely up in the air, but I would love to see something from that. I'm not sure if we will necessarily get it, as we've never really gotten anything from how Ymir feels or her emotions or more of a mental understanding towards the situation. We've seen how she's felt in the sense of her built up anger after she was released by Eren and set free, but I would love to see a lot more personal time with her, maybe within the past or within the realm, specifically with her either talking to Armin or all three of them, Eren, Armin and Ymir, having a conversation. I think something like that would be super impactful to understanding her further, but also how Eren and her coexist with one another and within this power. I should go to mention that Onion, the pilot of the plane, I was very curious on what actually happened with him. He survived, and funny enough, he crash landed right next to everyone of somewhat importance. The parents of Reiner and Annie witnessing this event unfold, so he's heavily injured, but it's actually great to see him alive, and I'm impressed that he managed to survive the plane crash, especially with everything that's going on. I also like the framing of the general with how they want to use whatever remaining power or cannons that they can to obliterate and aid the people fighting Eren right now. The words that he mentioned are just as powerful as ever. The previous statement that he made was such an incredible speech that fully opens up the Malian perspective of Eren, of Eldians, and just the entirety of the hatred cycle itself. That general acknowledging and even counter-arguing to someone else in saying that, do you know the reasons for fighting, is such a simple but well-needed comment that adds even more fuel to the whole cycle of hatred and to understand it clearly. This person that has been born and molded and raised within Mali to hate these specific people, now that he's questioning the judgment of other people and stating, do you even know the reasons why they're fighting? Passing on that judgment is such a massive step in seeing through other people. If he can say these things, he can teach these things, and it's just a ripple effect from there. So once again, simple but super effective, and I'm glad that it's framed the way that it is. You're probably wondering, what are they even fighting at this point? Every iteration of the 9 Titans from past to present. It's quite an incredible sight to see, to be honest. So many different designs and alterations and developments and evolutions within these Titans for different time periods. It's actually extremely insane to see. These Titans that Eren is creating out of the spinal structure and controlling is what's versing everyone else. So they are beyond heavily outnumbered, and you can 100% feel it. There is so much pressure and anxiety and just them being overwhelmed with so many powerful iterations of different Titans from the past. Because of this desperation, the Card Titan takes it upon herself to try a different approach, because as much as they want to try and get Armin back, she goes a different route. Tries to attack Eren directly at the nape of his neck. Mind you, this wasn't their plan. This is her own personal plan, which comes in the form of a personal desire, which is bolstered by the effects of desperation and being overwhelmed. Obviously this doesn't work, but now is a litany of bombs surrounding Eren's neck as she gets impaled by a Warhammer Titan and picked up with the spear that they use. I kind of feel bad for her, but to act so desperately and drastically within a situation where you need to be calm and collected as much as possible, she was somewhat asking for this result. She's actually lucky that she's alive, which I believe is not by mistake. I think Eren is somewhat sticking true to his words and not necessarily trying to kill as best as possible. But then that brings up the question that I mentioned before, if Ymir is also controlling some of these people. It could be a split between both, it could be one or the other, or it could be just a massive coincidence. There's a nice little confrontation with Galliard obviously being controlled and his Titan going up against Reiner, which brings up some recently closed wounds, and then you shift completely onto the Eren situation, which reiterates what I've been talking about, Ymir also being in control, and saying that Eren is not necessarily trying to kill his friends, but the people doing the damage right now, and most likely framing the situation like this with all of these Titan shifters from the past, is Ymir. So they're working in somewhat unison or conjunction with one another. I don't know how that works with Eren's perspective. Does he even know that this is actually happening? Is he witnessing this event unfold and kind of letting it be, or are they such coherently intertwined that you can't distinguish the two from one another? Does that make sense? This is somewhat Armin's perspective of it, and while he's fading into the abyss and struggling to breathe because he's being choked out, Bertolt comes back in and the colossal Titan is formed from that. Mind you, it's not formed from Armin specifically, it's formed by either Eren or Ymir, so I assume they can't just use whatever Titan shifter they technically should all be connected to. They have to be somewhat connected to the Titan that Eren is, so they can use the ability through them. That seems to be like what's going on. If that necessarily wasn't the case, you'd be able to see like duplicates of the Armin Titan or Annie's Titan, for example, when they're not even in the vicinity, or they're not merged with Eren's Titan, I should say. With the birth of the colossal Titan from Bertolt, Reiner gets a very close encounter, almost completely getting obliterated. His Titan does actually get destroyed, but he is luckily saved by Jean, and leads into a very simple but beautiful, tragic conversation that they have while they're mid-hanging, trying to survive within the chaotic nature of everything. I think it's a good showcase of both their mental states, with Reiner basically giving up and saying that he should let go so Jean doesn't get killed, but then Jean rebuttals with him being useless and being trampled on by the rumbling, and Reiner responding with, "Do you think we still have a chance?" And Jean says no, but they at least have to fight till the bitter end, which is something that I feel like has just now gotten through to Reiner. His expression is very fragile, almost like he's about to cry, but he's so quick to give up in these situations, especially if it's in the benefit of someone else, like which in this case it is Jean, trying to save him by sacrificing himself. But the words go to power Reiner quite a bit, and that red flag once again starts to pop up for him, that he could actually eventually be killed when he does fight to the bitter end. It's very ironic for his character to be like that when he's wanted to die for so long and takes these routes that puts him at death's door, but he never actually meets it. Then the only time that he does fight to the bitter end and truly wants to survive, he could potentially die. I'd like to see him survive, but either or I feel like is a good way to go. Levi also has an extremely close encounter with death and even losing his leg. He gets injured once again, so he just has it hard at this point. He's struggling to keep up with everything, but it's truly impressive how terribly injured he is, but he's still managing to pull out quite a massive amount of energy and support within these situations. It's hard to see what future he has, but if there is one, he's definitely going to be rather crippled. The injury to his leg and how much he nearly lost it is going to take its toll. He's lucky that he realistically doesn't have to use it with the 3D maneuver gear, but still putting in a lot of work, and this drives Mikasa to push even further. And as much as there's so much going on, so many people are all over the place and no one really has a true spotlight, Mikasa has so much intensity surrounding her, which she always does, but within this situation, it's elevated beyond belief. Something that is akin to Levi within his prime or within his moments of full concentration and even anger. You see that with Mikasa and how she's willing to just go way beyond her own limitations to fight to the bitter end, because they're truly outnumbered. Everything's looking completely grim. People are heavily injured. They don't know what to do. They can't get to Armin, and she's still willing to fight till the bitter end. I also absolutely love the final panel for her, where she's yelling all of this stuff out into existence and basically manifesting it. She's saying that she's strong, that she'll take all of these titans on, and she's dangling, but the wings of Falco's titans is behind her. So it's very symbolic in the sense of like angelic wings, perfectly framed to be like that. At least for me, I love seeing how far she is willing to go and the limits that she's going to push to get the results that she wants. She seemed willing to sacrifice every sort of like human aspect of herself and let all of her instincts take control. I don't think we've seen that for a very long time, but she was desperate. The situation called for it. Luckily, with the arrival of Falco and his bird titan at this point, also comes Gabby and Annie, which is a nice change of pace, and they swoop everyone off Eren's titan form and out into the distance. Unfortunately, as much as I love to see her character, the final face she makes does not give me hope for her surviving. That red flag alongside Reiner is just rapidly increasing and getting ever so higher. With that concludes the whole chapter. I apologize for this video being so long, but the next couple of days or weeks are going to be rather interesting for Attack on Titan in general. Not only do we get this chapter, we also get the first episode of the anime, which a lot of people are excited for, and hopefully, fingers crossed, everything goes well for it. Only time will tell in that regard. So with that being said, that is basically it. I absolutely enjoyed this chapter. I loved how chaotic and over the top it was, and we're getting ever so closer to the conclusion of such a legendary manga. So let me know how you felt. I'd love to hear your thoughts. But I want to thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Drink plenty of water, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.